Bishop fighting against 8 pawns. So bishop can hardly fight against 3 or 4 pawns in general, like because fighting 8 is something very unusual, and all these pawns are pass pawns. Like you can see, there is no other pawns to stop them. So the lone bishop is going to fight against 8 pawns. Okay, so most of the cases, if bishop fights against 8 pawns, the bishop is going to lose very badly. But here there is a reason why bishop wins against the 8 pawns. You can think what could be the reason. You can think for a moment. What could be the reason for black to lose here? Even though they have 8 pawns, and bishop is going to remain as bishop only, the value is not going to increase, it's going to be 3. But the pawns, like these pawns can potentially become a queen. All these pawns are potential queen. Okay, so it's about the mobility. You see, the king's mobility is really bad. So this is the only reason that black is going to lose here, because even though they have huge material, but the king mobility is really bad. So in this position we should be aiming to get the bishop to this diagonal. To win, we have to somehow get this bishop to this diagonal, but it's not easy to get there. First, let me just show you some practical try, and you can see the difficulties. Okay, for example, if I'm trying to directly get the bishop to the diagonal via e1, it's not going to work, and black is going to win here because they will fight for this diagonal. So they will push the pawn to b4. Now the bishop is not going to get there, and we can't move the king also, because if we move the king something like d1, they will get the king to b1, and the mobility will increase for the king. So black is going to win. So king move is not possible. And let's say if we try to take this, they are going to push pawn to b4, I mean b3. So once b3 comes, b2 will come very faster, and game is lost for white. So bishop e1 is not going to work, because bishop e1, we can just play pawn here, and let's say we try to hold the pawn with king c2. Here practically black can win with pawn push. Even this is possible because we can sacrifice and get the king to b1. So once the king comes to b1, the king has mobility, and already there's a threat here. So we are going to queen, and this bishop won't be able to help against this pawn. Still so many pawns are left. Okay, so this is one idea, like you want to get here, so you must be aiming for these squares. In order to win, your bishop has to get to these squares, and you have to aim for a uncontested diagonal. What is uncontested diagonal? The diagonal where there is no pawns to block. It should be a free diagonal. For example, if I try to come here, I won't be able to come there, because this diagonal, there are defenders. You can see a diagonal without defenders, that is uncontested diagonal. So we have to aim for that. So that is one thing. And key squares, the important key square should be b2. Somehow we have to aim for this. Okay, so we have to make them push the pawn to the light squares. If they push the pawn to the light squares, our task would be very simple. For example, let's say I capture on h4, and they make a careless move, pawn push. So you can see the dark squares are weakened, and we have a dark square bishop. So our task would be more simple here. We can directly come to e1 and then bishop c3 will mate, so there's no defense. So they have to defend the dark squares here. So first we should take on h4, because as I told you, bishop e1 is not good because they will just play pawn to b4, and if we take, they are going to play pawn b4, I mean pawn b3, so it's winning for black. So first we have to take, here, and if they play a4, the dark squares are weaker, you can see. So uncontested diagonal, so no defenders for the dark squares, so we can easily get the key square. So the bishop can come here by putting it on e7, because the diagonal becomes uncontested one, no challenges, no defenders. Okay, so even if they play this, we are going to get the bishop there, and the bishop is going to go to b2. So black has to defend the dark squares. So first we can take, we'll see how black defends the dark square. So if black plays pawn to b4, so this is one option here, pawn to b4, we have to go bishop e7, because if we play bishop g3, black is going to win. They are going to defend the dark squares. They are going to play pawn to f6, and then you can see b3 is coming. Next move, b3 is coming, so we won't be able to stop b3. Maybe we can try one small trick trying to get there, but they are not going to play b3. They are going to play c5, and you see there's a very strong control over the dark squares. So the bishop is going to have a very hard time, right? So it's not going to come. The black's control over the dark square is too strong. So black is also aware of this idea, so it's not going to work. So first we can take. So now if they play b4, we have to go bishop e7, because b3 is a very dangerous threat. The moment they play b3, we are going to get the bishop to a3, and then we can reach there. So we should always keep an eye on this square, a3. So now they have few options, and one such option is pushing the pawn here. If they push the pawn to e4, you can see this diagonal now becomes an uncontested one, because there is no defender at all, no defense. So we need to shift the bishop to this diagonal. So we can do it via c5. So the bishop can go to c5, and then we connect to d4. So it's over, because white's attack is too fast here. So this leads to a checkmate. So going back to the position, so we have to take it, and then if they push, we are going to play bishop e7. So as I told you, they won't be able to play this pawn, because if they move this, the dark square becomes weak. Bishop a3 is one idea. I mean bishop a3 is a strong idea here, so that leads to mate. And pushing this pawn is also not possible, because that would leave the diagonal uncontested. So bishop is going to go to d4. So they have to play f6 or c5. If they play f6, okay, now the dark squares are quite strong, but we have the dark square bishop, so we have to break this coordination. So the best thing to do is attack the base of the chain pawn. These are strong chain pawn, so the bishop is not really able to fight against them, because they are chain pawn, so each pawn will protect each other. So to fight against them, you have to attack the base of the chain pawn. So the base of the chain pawn is the g pawn. Right, so we have to go bishop f8 here. So the base is attacked, and they will play g6, and you have to move the bishop in such a way where you will always have an option to come to a3, because if you go too far, something like this, trying to take and then take, black is going to quickly play b3 and we are lost here. So we have to keep an eye on the a3 square. At the same time, we have to induce a weakness on the dark squares. So bishop has to go to e7. Now you see the chain pawn basement is slowly getting weakened. Now if they play f5, we have bishop to f6, and then the e pawn will fall, so we can force a checkmate here. So going back to the position, so first we will take on h4, so b4 we saw, okay, f6, one option here, f6, f6, we have to maneuver the bishop to f2, because now the bishop has no scope, it won't be able to go there, and we have to meet this threat by getting the bishop there. So we can play bishop f2, so the bishop is getting to c5, and here there are few options. After bishop f2, let's say they play g6. If g6, then we have to go here. We are ready to go to a3, so they have to defend the dark square, so they have to play pawn b4, and the same idea which I told earlier, like you should maneuver the bishop in such a way where you must be able to come here. At the same time, you must attack the base pawn, so the bishop has to go to e7. Now it works, bishop e7, because if they go b3, we always have a chance to play bishop a3, so they don't have move here. And if they play f5, we can either go bishop f6 or bishop d6, both leads to the same result. So the dark square, the strong control over the dark square is broken. So we'll see other options. Okay, so first move, I'm going to take on h4, so they have to play f6, this is obvious. So bishop f2. So other options are c5. Okay, if they are offering the pawn, we can take. Anyway, bishop is ready to go to a3, so they have to play this. Now again, the same idea in a different format. So we have to keep an eye here. Whenever b3 comes, we have to go bishop a3. So we have to attack the base of the chain pawn. See, these pawns are chain pawns. So we have to attack the base of the chain pawn. So we have to go bishop f8. So now b3, we can come back. If they play e4, we can directly come here. The dark square is weakened, so there's no defense. And even if they play f5, we can take, or we can play this. Both are possible. g5, so we have to keep an eye on a3 and this diagonal, so bishop has to go to e7, because if they play b3, we have a chance to go to a3, and if they play f5, there's a weakness on this diagonal, so we can directly play bishop f6 or bishop d6. Both are too strong. Yep. Okay, so this is one option. So we'll see other options. So first move, we will take on h4, and directly pushing this is bad, because you know, uncontested diagonal, so bishop f2 wins on spot. So f6 we saw. Okay, so f6, bishop, okay, f6, bishop f2, and one option here is f5. Yeah, f5 we can target this. We want to induce weakness on this, so directly we won't be able to do this, because if we play bishop g3, they are going to play f4. So f4 is coming, so we have to play bishop c5. So anyway, the pawn chain is weakened, so it will be very easy to break the coordination in the dark squares. So bishop c5, If they play b4, we can go bishop d6. So this is lost here. So after bishop f2, if they try g5, same plan, bishop c5. So we will attack the base once again. a4, bishop a3. If they play a4, bishop a3. If they play pawn push, we'll quickly attack the base. They are coming. We can take. They are coming, but we are on time to deliver the mate. So actually after bishop f2, g5, black is in zugzwang. So whatever moves he plays, lost. Okay, so this is one very instructive example of how to make use of the bishop in the dark square. Like black is lost, and the only reason is because of the king mobility. So this is one very instructive study. So we'll see more similar examples in the upcoming lessons. Thank you.